So he had all of these lawsuits, all of these things he was accused of. People were thinking he was going to go to jail. He wins the election. They end up dropping a bunch of suits. One of the lawsuits that they didn't drop was his $500 million fraud penalty. They said, oh, Trump exacerbated how much money that he made, how much his assets were worth. He got hit with a fraud case. He had a $500 million penalty, a fine. It's been reduced. They're saying that $500 million is extremely excessive, and I'm inclined to agree. But let's get this reporting from Fox News. They're going to tell us what's going on, and we can talk about it.
Well, a Fox News alert, a New York appeals court just this morning has thrown out President Donald Trump's massive civil fraud penalty. The decision from a 5-panel group in New York's appellate division changed the original decision that stood to cost Trump over $500 million. One appeals judge calling the lower court's penalty an excessive fine that violates the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. You might remember that New York Attorney General Letitia James' office says despite this decision, they will not be dropping the case. Let's get some thoughts from Andy McCarthy. He's a former U.S. attorney.
No, let's get some thoughts from me. So they said they're not dropping the case, but $500 million is excessive. I'm inclined to agree. No matter what you think about Trump, no matter if you think he's a good person, a bad person, whether you think he colluded with Epstein or you think he isn't guilty at all, I think we can all agree that doing like this witch hunt where you're trying to pin anything on him and saying, yo, we finally got something, we got him, and then finding him $500 million, it's a bit excessive. It's a bit excessive because when you do stuff like that, you give ammo to all of the MAGA supporters, all the Republican supporters, all the conservatives that say, yo, you're just trying to do this as a form of political retaliation. You're trying to do this as a form of political retaliation to hurt Trump where it matters the most to him, in his pocket. Now, he was found guilty, right, of inflating his net worth, his assets, all of this stuff. And we can say that something is owed, right? He was able to get loans based on this. He was able to do business based on the price of his assets and getting loans from the banks and all of this stuff. You can say without a doubt that he overinflated, he cheated the system, he did some fraud. But when you start doing this excessive thing, it delegitimizes your point. And unfortunately for all the people that were rooting for him to be dealt this blow, it's a step in the wrong direction. If we're going to do something like this, if we're going to cheer for something like this, if you're going to advocate for something like this, do it in a fair way, the same way that you would litigate anybody else that wasn't Trump. Just because you don't like him as president, you can't say, oh, well, you know, he needs to be given the harshest of harsh penalties. There are some people that are going to say, oh, well, you're playing softball because you like Trump. I don't necessarily care for Trump. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat either. I just think that it's like things have to make sense. If you're going to prosecute him for something, do it to the same extent you would prosecute anybody else. And then you had the woman, Letitia James, who was, you know, they accused her of mortgage fraud, essentially. They said that she had a house down in Richmond or somewhere down in Virginia. And she used her dad and said that this was her husband. She has a house in Florida and all of this stuff, right? And because she went after Trump so harshly, people turned the spotlight on her and said, yo, let's look into what she has going on. And now she's in her own case. She's in her own proceeding to find out if what she did was illegal. So because you went so excessive, because you leaned so hard, what you really did was turn the spotlight on you when you are potentially doing something that is also fraud, that is also egregious. And you only get there because you lean so hard and put yourself up as being this righteous person. My point is Trump guilty of something? Is he guilty of fraud by falsifying his net worth or overinflating the value of his assets? If that's the law, then absolutely. But do we have to burn him at the stake for it when we would not burn other people at the stake for it? Nah, that's unfair. It doesn't make sense. We have to do things that make sense and hold people appropriately and proportionately accountable for the thing that they do. under the law. So this is Trump. They're saying it's a violation of the 8th Amendment and he's being subject to excessive and cruel punishment. You guys let me know what you think. I tend to agree. There are people that want to see him lose everything. And in this case, it looks like he has a slight W in the column. Not a complete dropping of the case. They may get appealed. They may try to find some other way to get him to pay an exorbitant amount. But as for $500 million, he's not going to be paying that.